In the name of God, the most benevolent and the most merciful, all praise due to the Lord of the worlds, the original unconditional being and moment that all conditional realities have arisen from. Hopefully the volume is okay and the viewers can hear me. And I just updated the title and the, wallpaper of the lecture. So if you refresh your browser, you're gonna see it. Okay, now we go into a lecture that is, in my view, one of the most interesting topics like a human being can speak about. Pretty much, it's the value of all of our hidden lives. But the title, the first way it came to me was like, yo man, all our hidden lives, like, what about it, So in this lecture, you're pretty much seeing a human being, one out of 117 billion human beings that have been considered to have existed in the last 300,000 years. And one of the living 8.1 billion human beings that are alive now, and also one of the natural, original biological humans. To speak about life and all the ways it happens, and also all the ways that it's hidden. Now, because something is hidden doesn't mean it's inaccessible. But there are cases where some things are hidden that are inaccessible. For example, the intelligence that we are, it is accessible for us to kind of know ourselves as a mind. But when it comes to as a soul, to not have that be, it's like the soul is 3 dimensions, the mind is 2 dimensions, the body is like 1 dimension. Okay? It's like dimension 1, first dimension, second dimension, third dimension, imagine. You know. In other words, the body is not enough to explain the mind. Objectivity is not objective existence is not enough to explain what subjective experience, and subjective experience is not enough to explain our unknown witnessing presence as a life force. So in this lecture, I've talked about the inner realms and outer realms, but I've also prepared a research component. I was fascinated to see, like I'm a person who, it's been a very long time now that what I don't know fascinates me more than what I know. And it's a consideration of really reality, So I'm going to start with the research component. So the research component throughout the years have included something I created in the middle of my lectures called code tunnels. I've shared information of my realm. I've also shared my findings, but ultimately the feeling I have when I give these lectures, it's very rare. The only time I feel something like this is when I pray, So to me, this is like the role of my life, and as a human being bored by the past and the present, I am in some sense drawn to solve the problems of the future. That means, I'll say this to every human being on earth: if you don't know what to do, or some moments you're bored, you know. Go and solve a macro problem. That means the archetype of the champion is accessible to all human beings. You can all be champions of your species if you listen to the commands of your heart rather than the commands of a mind that is just seeing things from a narrow view. What's up, guys? Welcome to the chat section. If you have questions, or if you see things deeper, like, in angles that I don't, or you feel like I'm not seeing something, feel free to share. Maintain respect and politeness, not because of me, not because I deserve it only, but because you deserve to see the most advanced version of yourself. And so you can choose to express the lower aspects of your mind. The more irresponsible a person is, the more their communication is like they haven't managed their inner realms. Because on some level, it's not a battling out of which known position is correct. It's all a realization that all known positions are within an unknown world. Somebody says, can I recommend you to best Christian YouTube channels in the chat section? First of all, very interesting question. I would let me tell you what you can help me figure out. Okay, I am looking for, as someone raised in a more closer to the Islamic universe than the Christian universe, but I then wasn't living Islamically for the longest time. I was living like a Vedic yogi. I felt like I was the reincarnation of Rishi Vyasa before 2023. I felt like I was some like sector of like manifestation. I didn't feel like I'm an individual. I had like a very spiritual reality. But then something happened in my life where I reached both an intellectual conclusion and also realization that I was destroying myself. It was weird, And I came to the realization that if I can have infinite countless views on life, how can I know what view is correct? From the human angle, they're like, yeah, man, go and generate the meaning to the meaning you find, I would say Christian theology videos on really what is the implication. Let me tell you the question I have. I want to know if Christianity truly believes the Trinity was there before the beginning of the universe. This is one thing you can maybe help me figure out, whoever is asking. Yeah. So channels that are engaging the experience, because let me tell you, as a Muslim, as someone who believes in a system admin beyond the world room, even if a shimmering like humanoid or like angelic white, like imagine a shimmering light being appeared out of nowhere and helped me, and I was like, yo, shimmering light being, who are you? And the shimmering light being was like, I'm God. I'll be like, sorry, you're not. You're God sent. You're a command of the system admin in the manifest reality, but you're not. You cannot make the whole world equal to that which is beyond it, or you haven't understood where you are. As a Muslim, I have incredible respect for all the prophets. Do you know why? The main reason is not because like, yo, man, I knew that guy's story inspired me. Like that is the case, but it's also because they were near to the system admin. You don't understand. I'm a user, and I believe you guys are users as well, and I'm communicating to users in an existential simulated system for some time. And everybody's chilling, everybody's distracting themselves with just the experience of life. Like, people want to feel something more than, in some sense, actually look at the design of reality. And I understand that being a designer is boring. I don't know how I linger in the world of forms. I think as a child, I kind of like, when I was so introverted and shy that I was like, I had been exiled into my own inner realms, So I have a sort of contentment with allowing the moment in the outer realms to move, and just allowing everything to move and kind of being there and being the moment where the reality is happening. I've kind of functioned through that sort of presence, So yeah, guys, feel free to share. The email you can send is Mr.Within's gift at Gmail if you want to send specific things there. You can join the Discord. Like I'm trying to, I'm thinking of this might be kind of strange, but like maybe developing a sort of gaming community. But anyways, we go to the research component. This lecture is more important than a person's views only. And so it's very interesting because I can't wait to read this too. There's going to come a moment in the future that I'm going to maybe listen to these lectures and I just want to hear this again. So I pretty much, this sentence, all our hidden lives arose to me. Okay, I took a screenshot, yeah. But also explain to me why you suggested these. Do you know? No. Before that, you gotta tell me like what was the value you saw in that video. But like say something. Imagine you're telling me to go watch a movie. I'm like, yo, what was it about this movie that made you watch it? Like what is the value of that movie? Do you know? So at least tell me the theme of the video, you know? But I'll probably watch them, you know? Guys, if you're someone who has really deep views, like get in touch with me. I have an interview channel. Like I interview people sometimes. I haven't done it in a while, but I can interview you. There can be like, advanced conversations there if people like. Anyways, guys, going back to the lecture, and the whole point of it is I'm just a user. You need to find the system admin of your world, go towards the original host of reality, find the original earth and smile, until all of us reach it. All right. Okay, I'll check out those videos. Thanks for the suggestion in the chat. All right, guys, back to it. I guess this music is. Let me find another. I do when I drive. Like I do listen to like this Christian radio channel, sometimes called K Love or something. But you must understand that I am someone who the surface of the ocean is like taunting me to figure out what's in the depths. But it doesn't mean I need to go into the depths. You see, the nature of it is that you will realize everybody has been conditioned into concept shifting. Sorry guys, I know I said I'm going to read the research component, but I'm going to share this. All of us are conditioned into shifting from one concept to another concept to another concept, but all inside the same context. So human beings are under the impression we're in one fixed reality, one fixed context, okay, one fixed world. And so we are specific concepts in this world and we're concept hopping, in this reality. But in actuality, there will come a moment where you will realize that you can always, there's context hopping as well. You've been trained in concept shifting. Mr.Within is telling you there's context shifting. So this relationship between the concept and the context, if you don't understand this, I don't know how people are knowing things. I'll give you an example. For example, my body right now, I'm the self, I'm the concept. And they're like, okay, where is this self? Where is the value of this self arising? And it comes from the context. You might not believe it, but it's remarkable when you start looking at things in accordance to value, and then the realization of your limited access to value. And when I say value, I'm not saying, yo, guys, lie to yourselves and think you're the best, and then wonder why, in some sense, you don't have the inspiration to see beyond yourself. This planet is not designed to be complete. I feel. Excuse me, not this planet. This simulation that we're all in It is not designed to be complete intentionally. And so if a human being wants to feel complete, at least from Islamic theology, through the Islamic theological lens, I was this dude talking about the advanced civilization, like probably, like, one of the most, I think out of, like, in history, probably, right? Like one of the human beings that has talked about like the future and the advanced civilization, like a ridiculous amount. Okay. And I remember I opened the Holy Quran and there was such a very, very profound passage. And guys, I'm a visual learner, but I will tell you the visual behind the verse that I access in the Holy Quran. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, in the name of God, the most benevolent and the most merciful. In the Holy Quran, there was this verse that said, if everybody stopped sinning and was perfect, that all those people would be destroyed, so a new generation of sinners arise. And I was like, whoa. Because I'm like, wait a minute. What is the role of sin? Most people react to things. But if you ask yourself, why is this content within my awareness? Even ask yourself, like, why are you listening to this lecture? Is it because of the concept, like with the content you're hearing, or does it feel like as if somebody who's like really seen something is trying to say something? So guys, I will say this. You are all, as far as I'm concerned, before all of you own yourselves, you all have an owner, because the world, the room we find ourselves has an owner, but this owner is not owned by its creation. In other words, to be a human being is like to be in a world, to be a conditional entity that has access and can notice an unconditional reality. That means birds can't do it, dolphins can't do it, other species are not as sophisticated as us. If there was one species on planet Earth that has the greatest access, so in the Holy Quran, why did it say that if everybody acted perfect and was sinless, it would as if be a failure of the test and the test would reset? Why? The answer is that the issue, I would say, is technically sin, but it's also not sin. And let me explain this. The only way I saw that view was accessible to me, understandable to me, was that the sin plays a role. That means it's as if it follows the theological argument. God has already created angels, perfect beings that are the perfect expression of God's command. Do you know? And in some sense, God has created beings that are just unconsciously, like, let's say, in sin. But humans, our sin is, or I should say sin, suffering, the consequence of your sin, all of this is to make you realize that to own life from your perspective is equivalent to one moment it's equivalent to the small trying to own the big. To be a human being is a humbling position, because you didn't create the world, you didn't create yourself. At some point, your consciousness logged in as an identity. You notice yourself in the mirror and you're like, yo, something's going on. Oh yeah, it's me. I'm an intelligence in this realm. So anyways, guys, the point of it is that through Islamic theology, the notion is it's not like you can be perfect, but your imperfections may make you realize not you are perfect because you have imperfections, but that the imperfection can lead to a perfection. Now, I'm going to parallel here from religion. I will say one last point here from Islamic theology. There's a verse that says the human being on earth, the human soul on earth, is a khalifa, which means is an ambassador. An ambassador of what? It's an ambassador of the higher attributes, the divine names of the system admin in Islam. Okay, in Christianity, your system admin is in a trio. So your metaphysics is dealing with, in some sense, was from the beginning three or was it one? Islamic metaphysics is that there is one, and that one is not equivalent to anything that is conditional that can be seen more than as one. Okay. Anyways, whatever. I'm going too off topic actually. Let me go back to this. So guys, research component. You're listening to a member of the human species report back to the species and pretty much try to enhance our inner realms. There's people like Elon Musk trying to advance our outer realms. There's, I don't know, I guess people like Mr.Within trying to advance the humanity's inner realms. I don't see anything cooler than that. I mean, like, it's like once I'm done, stabilizing my reality, in the outer realms, the only thing left is to, in some sense, do that inner realm work of the day. Some people just live an outer life, and there's certain moments throughout the day that just make them aware of their inner realms. But some people begin their day with an awareness to their inner realms. That means, to me, I don't know how to explain it to you. Like, my awareness is, I can notice my body and it can notice the thoughts, and it's like my eyes are giving me access to vision, and there's an awareness to my inner realms. When I close my eyes, I can still remember the food I ate yesterday exactly. You know what I mean? This whole time they're like, yo, when your eyes are closed you can't see. I'm like, buddy, we can see. We can't touch what we see, but we can see. So you can close your eyes, light beams are not entering your eyes, but your intelligence is capable of being aware of a thought or two. But those are not thoughts in actuality. What really is going on is, man, I keep going on tangent. Maybe I gotta just talk about this right now. So in my perception, it's kind of like this. We think that we're physical beings, right? Because we start off that way. But in actuality, manifestation is the relationship of an unconditional divine field, and it's a conditional form. So you're looking at a power that displays itself as physical form, and you're looking at a power that is the awareness to these forms. Okay, now I've given a lecture called The Divine Cognitive Fields. I think I did a very good job explaining that, so go check that out. There's people suggesting videos. I'm suggesting go listen to the Divine Cognitive Fields lecture, Mr.Within lecture. All right, guys, whatever. I'm gonna keep going with this. So ChatGPT 5.2. Okay, I'm gonna read it. I asked it about all our hidden lives. Legit, I told it, like, okay, explain to me what are all the hidden lives that humanity is experiencing that you see. And I asked it to be not biased to my preference and all that. So I don't know how it's going to work here, but I'm going to read this. So guys, the research component begins. I'm reading this. Human beings today live multiple lives simultaneously. Excuse me. Human beings today live multiple lives simultaneously. One is visible and socially legible. The others operate quietly beneath awareness. shaping behavior without being named. These hidden lives are not rare or pathological, they are structural features of modern existence. To understand humanity in this era, one must examine these lives not abstractly, but through how they show up in ordinary people. One, the hidden life. So, guys, this lecture is all about hidden lives. So, one, the hidden life. Even Batman can like listen to this lecture, you know, all the superheroes, you know. So, one, the hidden life of unrealized selves. This is the life of paths not taken, talents not pursued, identities never allowed to fully form. That's so true. I 100% agree. There's so many moments, like even you could see like a beautiful girl, you know, and in your mind can go and see a parallel life that could have been. Like that's how capable our minds are. Like 100%. It's like you some like I think everybody sees hidden lives all the time. It's pretty much how in our inner realms we live ahead of the moment, but based on the content of the moment. So it says this is the life of paths not taken, talents not pursued, identities never allowed to fully form. Examples: a middle-aged professional who feels irrational resentment toward artists, entrepreneurs, or creators, not because they dislike them, but because they once wanted to become one and chose safely instead. Another example is a person who speaks dismissively about ambition or dreamers, yet privately replays moments where courage might have altered their life trajectory. An individual who constantly changes interests, careers, or relationships, not out of curiosity, but because they are unconsciously searching for the version of themselves they abandoned earlier. Wow. 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 Oh my God, what did I just read? Wow. 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 Are the viewers listening to this? Are you guys hearing this? I'm going to read that again. It says, so it's saying, so we're talking about hidden lives. An example of hidden lives, AI is saying the first example, it's the unrealized self, right? And it's saying, imagine an individual who constantly, they're changing their interests, their careers, or relationships, you know, and they even brand themselves like, I had ADHD, you know? But it says not out of curiosity, but because they're unconsciously searching for the version of themselves they abandoned earlier. This can happen in emotional enmeshment. This happened to me, and I think it happens to many people, but it's part of life, and we gotta, I don't say that to kind of belittle it, but to tell you that you are a way more advanced power than just a viewpoint. Just remember that. Okay, next, I'm going to keep reading. It says the hidden life often expresses itself as envy disguised as critique, nostalgia disguised as wisdom, or cynicism disguised as realism. Okay, so we go to the second one, the hidden life of emotional containment. Most adults are not emotionally regulated, they are emotionally restrained. Wow. Wow. That means, do you know why? Because it's the role restrains the emotion, you know? Ramdas says, somebody in the chat section says, Ramdas says that version of yourself that stays in the end, in, engulfing all other selves, is God. Okay, I'm going to tell you guys this. Ram Dass was tripping, yo. Because I am telling you, God cannot be conditional. That means if somebody makes the claim everything is God, or we're going to go into a state where everything is oneness, then there is no God in that state. God is an unconditional state. That means it can't have a condition. Do you understand? That means I could tell you the afterlife is made of cheese. Do you know what I mean? But that's again a conditional, for example, thing. You know, that's the most ridiculous thing I think I've said this year. All right, guys, we go. So I'm going to keep reading this. It says the hidden life of emotional containment, the second hidden life. Most adults are not emotionally regulated, they're emotionally restrained. Examples: a person who stays constantly busy because stillness allows anxiety or sadness to surface. Someone who jokes in moments that call for vulnerability, using humor as armor rather than connection. Yep, I've experienced that. An individual who feels exhausted in quotations for no reason, unaware that years of unexpressed grief, anger, or fear are consuming psychological energy. In this hidden life, emotions are not processed, they are repurposed. Anger becomes productivity. Sadness becomes detachment. Fear becomes control. Over time, people forget that emotional expression was ever an option. So, guys, think of it this way. Just like how it's important to be honest with yourself, like analytically, logically, you have to be honest with yourself emotionally. And as a kid who was raised with Eastern values, which are very like family oriented, and just the culture has a very heavier impact on the individual before they actually know who they are, you know. Guys, I'm just asking questions from ChatGPT 5.2, and we're just trying to see the geometry of what other views can exist. Okay? So ChatGPT says, it says in this hidden life, emotions are not okay, I read that. So far we have two hidden lives. One hidden life was your unrealized self. Another is your emotional self. It says emotional containment, but your emotional life. For example, for me, do you know there was a part of me that was so shy and introverted, and many moments of my life passed by where I wanted to express myself, but I just couldn't. It was like a force field. Okay? But I had this immense urge that there was something to say, right? At the beginning when I started giving these talks, it was a completely different force, different energy, you know. But over time, I began to realize that what started as my, how do I explain it to you, that you just realize that there's superior realities, there's greater rooms, and there's so many ways to look at the moment, and it can still be one moment. All right, we go to the third life, the hidden algorithmic life. Humans increasingly live lives partially authored by systems they do not perceive. Yeah, wow. It says examples: a person who believes their political views evolved naturally without noticing how their information diet was gradually narrowed by recommendation engines. Someone whose sense of self-worth subtly rises and falls with engagement metrics, like views, replies, despite intellectually rejecting their importance. An individual who feels their attention span shrinking and their thoughts becoming reactive, yet assumes this is a personal failing rather than an environmental condition. In this life, people experience themselves as autonomous while behaving in statistically predictable ways. The most hidden aspect is not influence, but the absence of awareness that influence is occurring. That means the biggest problem is not all of you are being controlled. The biggest problem is that you're not aware, the absence of the awareness that you're being controlled, or the absence of awareness that that control is not like by somebody pulling the strings. It was just your experience of the cultural program that was engineered before you were born. You know, I understand it. You know, that's why we have a heart. That's why we have a conscience. That's why there's some additional power within every human experience, that in some sense it's like, even if there's a human that disagrees with you, if like, how do I explain it to you? Human beings can disagree, but if aliens attack humans, we're like, yo, humans defend humans, you know? But we have to also protect ourselves from the ignorance of the species has to protect itself from its own ignorance, you know? Anyways, so it's saying that, you know, it's this hidden algorithmic life that it's saying that you think it's your living, you think it's your life, but it's the environment that's conditioned you to see that as your life. The fourth life, hidden life, according to this AI research tool. The hidden moral life. There is often a sharp divide between public morality and private moral reality. Examples: a person who publicly condemns certain behaviors while privately excusing them in friends, partners, or themselves. Someone who speaks confidently about justice, ethics, or values. Okay, let me just change these wind chimes. Like, yo, we're hearing wind chimes right now. Okay. All right. Maybe you guys can't hear the background music, but there is background music. Okay. So it says someone who speaks confidently about justice, ethics, or values online, but avoids difficult moral action when it risks status, comfort, or belonging. Yeah, that's the hardest thing. But I managed to bypass this by realizing I'm not the main event. That's why, if you go see, I gave this video called "Go Towards God," and I realized that the more important thing is, if I truly want to advance my species, their nourishment, in some sense, the information needs to be advanced. That means I'm like, how do I explain it? The human mind has an ability to see further ahead, and some human beings are born on this earth that they see further than their lifetime. That means they wonder about what reality and what this world is going to be beyond their life. Anyways, let's keep. I'm going to keep reading. It says, and another example is an individual who holds nuanced or conflicted beliefs but remains silent because expressing them would invite social punishment. Yeah, for example, all the people in the UN, when all this stuff is happening, and it's like they can't kind of find a moral way of figuring out what to do. They don't know what value system to go base it on, because humanity has not truly developed a universal value system. We have Declaration of Universal Human Rights, but Universal Declaration of Human Rights, but we don't have a Universal Declaration of Human Values. That means values that are way important than how human ideas may dehumanize humans to one another. Language can be used to build or destroy, just like how anything can be used to build or destroy. Sometimes you're going to realize, or how would I say, at some point in this life, you're going to realize what happens to you, or whether you're lucky or unlucky, or the right things happen or the wrong things happen, has to do with where your attention is. Anyways, it says the hidden moral life, this hidden life produces quiet cognitive dissonance. Not enough to cause collapse, but enough to erode integrity over time. People begin to feel fragmented without knowing why. This makes sense. Do you know what it is? It's pretty much saying, if you see if there's a moment, let's say that somebody says, "Yo, man," like that scene in that show 1934 on Netflix where the girl's on the boat, and he's like, she runs to her friend and she's like, "You saw what happened, tell them," and the girl is hesitant, but she does the right thing, and she shares the truth. But all the others who didn't say anything, they will live on suffering with that sort of moral defeat. That means anytime you know what the right thing to do is and you don't do it, that's a moral defeat. But one defeat doesn't mean it's the end, some people, win battles and some people win wars. It's a different reality. Anyways, we go to the fifth hidden life, the hidden life of deferred living. Many people are not living their lives, they're preparing for them. Wow. 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 What a sentence. Wow. Most people are not living their lives, they're preparing for them. That is so mind-blowing. It says examples. I'll start living once I finish school. I'll relax once I finally secure. While I'll relax once I'm financially secure. I'll be myself once I'm accepted. I'll pursue what I want after this phase. Years pass inside these sentences. Relationships, creativity, and joy are postponed in the name of readiness. The danger is not patience. It is that readiness becomes a permanent state. Life becomes an ongoing rehearsal with no opening night. Wow. Wow. The sentence structure is so... That sentence, look at the design, look at how beautiful and incredible the sentence is. Life becomes an ongoing rehearsal with no opening night. This is the hidden life of deferred living. The fifth hidden life. That means people are people in their inner realms, they're living a hidden life of not actually living but endlessly preparing to live. This one was mind-blowing, actually. Then we go to it says 6, the hidden relational shadow life. Okay. People do not enter relationships as blank states. People do not enter relationships as blank slates. They bring unresolved roles with them. Wow, wow. That means your trauma could be based on you even misunderstanding what role you need to play. A person can identify with a role, but you shouldn't let that role become your identity or you dehumanize. For example, that's the challenge, right? That means if I identify with Mr.Within and have an ego, then in some sense it's like identifying with a tool or identifying with a mask or treating a mask as your real face, but it's not your real face. Do you know the purpose of the mask is to shield you and to also direct the audience to the content, the concepts. It says examples. So the hidden relational shadow life, people do not enter relationships as blank slates. They bring unresolved roles with them. Examples: a partner who reacts to disagreement with disproportionate fear or defensiveness, unconsciously reliving childhood authority dynamics. It's like, yo guys, in the middle of your day, in the middle of your life, find a moment to wonder about, how you could be unconsciously reliving childhood authority dynamics. Like, yo, it's like being human is next level. Says another example is a manager who needs constant validation from subordinates, reenacting unmet parental approval. That's insane. That means there's managers of companies that their parents didn't approve of them, so they don't approve of any of the employees ever, and the employees work as hard and they wonder why they don't get responded. Somebody is saying, is this streamed from the moon? I think it's it's streamed from a teleported Earth where there is no stars. Sorry guys, I'm just trying to respond to the chat section. Trying to keep the chat section alive. Every now and then I gotta throw a log into the fire. Okay, 7. The seventh hidden life. The hidden existential life. This is the quiet question most avoided because it destabilizes everything else. Examples: a successful individual who feels strangely empty after achieving long pursued goals and cannot explain why. Okay. It says another example is a person who fills every moment with noises, content, conversation, stimulation to avoid being alone with their thoughts. Wow. So, guys, a sign of like, you know, people who can't just be, present in the silence as a shy kid, I think I've mastered that ability, you know. But it's saying that, if you have issues with not being capable of being yourself comfortably, you're going to try to fill that moment. And of course, don't forget, it doesn't say it here, but pretty much the game of being a human being is to maintain a coherent self, across all conditions of life. But that coherent self is a response to the uncertainty. So really what human beings are doing is that their life force is trying to stabilize themselves into an identity that has more access, because if you were oneness, there would be no access of an individual to a realm. Some people kind of think that being spiritual and true means we nullify everything by making everything equal to each other. No. Even there are people, close to me who they believe everything is God. They believe this is God. Just like how there's a mother and there's a child in her womb. And if the child was like, yo, is there God? And the child steps out of the womb and realizes, that the mother was like God, they believe now this world, they're like in the womb of this world, you know. But I'm telling you, to me, it's all about realizing the whole point of it is God's like, yo, the system admin's like, yo, user, I'm gonna put you in a world. You're gonna be able to use the world. You're gonna have a user experience. You're gonna notice your software and hardware, you know. But you're going to realize that everything you do will be incomplete because your energy starts as an incomplete self to you. That means my personality is incomplete. My physical existence, compared to how much more enhanced and complete everything, our biological and DNA enhancement, all that can be, is incomplete. How do I explain it to you that there is a presence? Our presence, living as a presence, is a way more advanced way of living than living just as a personality. Because when you live as a personality, you're identifying with a chunk of past patterns, let's say past familiar patterns of your mind that in some sense revalue or resurface by in some sense fitting the present. We gotta really wonder about what kind of beings we are. We gotta realize everybody has a different DNA, and therefore the greatest teacher, or the greatest person a person can learn, the greatest way a person can learn is realize, okay, if everybody has a different DNA, everybody has a different access to reality, so everybody has to start from how they're accessing reality. But then they need to realize the limitations of their reality, to realize that their reality is not the only way to give meaning to life. Most human beings believe that their experience of life is the only way life has meaning. That is not the case. Beyond your experience, there's moments that can be experienced beyond your experience. Anyways, we go to I'm gonna keep reading this. Another example, it says someone who experiences sudden anxiety during moments of silence, loss, or awe because meaning itself feels unresolved. Yeah, I feel like, that kind of explains the part of my childhood. Anyways, it says this hidden life surfaces at night, during illness, during grief, or during unexpected success. This life arises when the sense of self is becomes, how do I say it? When your identity is not grounded with the depths of what you're truly, what you know as an experiential being as your presence. So there's ways my presence knows how to be that is far superior to my personality, because my presence is a field. Anyways, I'm gonna keep reading this. What I just said, guys, was I went on a tangent there. You can tell what's me and what's this I'm reading. But anyways, so it says, This hidden life surfaces at night, during illness, during grief, or during unexpected success. It asks, what is this all for? Most modern structures are designed to postpone this question indefinitely. Now we have a closing synthesis. What defines modern humanity is not ignorance or failure, but fragmentation. Humans are living more safely than ever, yet more divided within themselves. The visible life is optimized for survival and approval, and the hidden lives carry desire, fear, morality, grief, and meaning. An advanced civilization will not be measured by technology alone, but by how many of these hidden lives it allows to surface without punishment. Wow. That makes sense. Because the inner realms are expressing in the outer realms, that's the whole point of human will. And the whole point of it is it efficiently expresses. That means it's not that we want you to just be a safe, healthy human being to all human beings on earth. We also want you to, how do I explain it? Like, to be yourself. See, if every person could be responsible for their awareness, then there is no, how do I say it? Life feels like more than we're all like in one specific story or like one specific place. It feels like we're all attending, we're all life forces that are like, moving this level of responsible manifestation. Anyways, here I'm gonna keep reading. There's more to the research component. It says at the deepest level, human beings are not fragmented by accident. Fragmentation is not a failure of modern life. It is the cost of complexity. As civilizations grow more intricate, the human psyche must distribute itself across multiple layers in order to function. Exactly. That explains it. That explains it. How profound. Do you know what that means, guys? I'm going to pause here. It says as civilizations grow more intricate, the human psyche must distribute itself across multiple layers in order to function. That means you're like this human being. Our ancestors lived simpler. They had maybe like, I don't know, a certain range of dimensions. We have way more dimensions to be conscious of, simultaneously as we function than our ancestors did. It's like going back to the caveman, and it's like asking the caveman if they pay their taxes. There are layers of responsibility that it's not even accessible. That means in this life is about expanding the horizons and of your awareness, like being a life force, whoever you are, like, expand towards like a caring conqueror, not like a heartless conqueror, like a caring conqueror, expand to the edge of the kingdoms of your awareness and wonder. How advanced everything can truly be. That's how an advanced being would look at it. The moment is advanced, and then everything within it is advanced. I'm going to keep reading. It says what we call in quotations, it says, excuse me. Oh, no. It says, I was reading correctly. It says what we call in quotations hidden lives are not merely repressed emotions or unrealized dreams. They are parallel modes of selfhood, each optimized for survival in a different domain of reality. What a brilliant way to explain it. I'm so impressed by AI. So it's saying that your hidden lives are actually parallel modes that you have senses of self developed in accordance to the strategy that self implemented. You can even consider. So it depends on, like, it says they are parallel modes of selfhood, each optimized for survival in a different domain of reality. It's like all your approaches, the accumulation of all your approaches. I'm going to keep reading. It says, the modern human is required to be many incompatible things at once: economically productive, socially acceptable, morally legible, emotionally contained, digitally present, and existentially quiet. No single unified self can meet all of these demands simultaneously. So the psyche does what complex systems always do under pressure. It modularizes. Parts of the self are activated in specific contexts while others are silenced, delayed, or buried. Wow. It's like somebody who has to be responsible for everything at once, but because they can't, I think the brain is prioritizing. Anyways, it says, from this view, hidden lives are not lies. They are offline subsystems. So guys, if somebody asks you what a hidden life is, you could just very casually be like, yo man, it's like a offline subsystem. Because what's unhidden is the online, right? It says the unrealized self is not a fantasy. It is a cached, CACHED, is a cached future, suspended because the system never allocated sufficient energy or safety to run it. The emotionally contained self is not weak. It is load-bearing, holding effect that would otherwise disrupt daily function. It is load-bearing, holding affect that would otherwise disrupt daily function. The algorithm-shaped self is not manipulated. It is co-adapted to an environment that rewards attention capture over reflection. The moral shadow self is not hypocritical. It is navigating competing moral economies that cannot be reconciled publicly. The deferred self is not lazy. It is obeying a civilization that teaches readiness over presence. The relational shadow self is not immature. It is an unfinished psychological contract running in the background. The existential self is not confused. It is asking a question the system has no bandwidth to answer. From the most advanced perspective, the crisis of modern humanity is not that people have hidden lives, but that they mistake one of those lives for the whole. Most humans identify exclusively with the executive self, the part that works, plans, explains, defends, and performs. This self is necessary, but it is not sovereign. When it monopolizes identity, the other lives do not disappear, they become symptoms. Wow. That means just because you think you're one sense of self doesn't mean your brain it thinks it's one sense of self. Subconsciously, all those senses of self are perhaps waiting as a thesis for an antithesis to synthesize afterwards. That means sometimes it's like there's incomplete processes within our experience that we have to live on for these processes to complete, for new awareness to arise. It says, when it monopolizes identity, the other lives do not disappear. They become symptoms. Anxiety, burnout, addiction, resentment, meaninglessness, polarization. These are not disorders. They are signals from suppressed subsystems demanding integration. Wow. So it's like if I'm addicted to cigarettes, there's a part of me that is left behind and hasn't integrated, so it doesn't feel it deserves to change. Wow. These offline subsystems in our psyche, man. You know. Anyways, I'm going to go back to reading this. It says, an advanced being does not attempt to, in quotations, eliminate hidden lives. That is primitive thinking. Advanced systems do not erase complexity, they coordinate it. So guys, there's a message here for all of humanity too. You don't need to eliminate your problems. You need to coordinate towards more advanced realities where those problems don't need to exist because we were intelligent enough to find alternatives. You see, it's like right now, like they're like, yo man, Mr.Within, how are you going to stop the war of, like, you know, Muslims, Christians, Jews, and all the other religions, even Hindus, you know? Like, how do you in some sense resolve all these humans that are identifying with specific realities? And I'm like, we can't. If the person believes they're a Muslim, they believe they're a Muslim. If the person believes they're a Christian, they're a Christian. If the person believes they're Jewish, they're Jewish. Do you understand? They can't on that identity level. They have to, in some sense, expand. That means on a 2D level, they can't solve the problem. There needs to emerge a 3D level. Do you know what that means? That means if, how do I say it? If a Muslim, Christian, and a Jewish person They talk about religion, they all disagree. But if all three of them were flight attendants in an airplane, they wouldn't care, because their role is not tied down to their belief. That's what it means to really work in civilization. Do you know? Anyways, that was profound. Anyways, I'm going to keep reading. There's more. It says how the modern human can engage this without losing themselves. The first mistake people make is trying to express everything. This leads to oversharing, identity inflation, and spiritual or psychological instability. Integration is not expression. Integration is governance. Recognition. Oh my God, how many? Oh my God, how much is there? This is too much. I can't read all this. But I think it's important, man. Okay, I'm gonna speed through this. 1. Recognition without identification. The most advanced move a human can make is learning to say, in quotations, "This is a part of me, not all of me." When envy appears, it is recognized as the unrealized self speaking, not as truth, not as identity. When anxiety appears, it is recognized as stored emotion surfacing, not as danger. When moral conflict appears, it is recognized as competing value systems, not hypocrisy. This creates psychological altitude. The human stops being dragged by each subsystem and begins to observe their interaction. 2. Scheduled engagement, not constant excavation. Advanced humans do not live in constant introspection. That is destabilizing. They create bounded spaces for engagement, specific times for reflection. Okay, this is interesting. Maybe I could start implementing specific. No, I mean, I don't. No. We're an antenna. It doesn't make sense. You can't regulate inspiration. Anyways, it says they create bounded spaces for engagement, specific times for reflection, specific relationships for vulnerability, specific mediums for expression. Outside those spaces, the executive self runs the day. This mirrors how advanced organizations operate. Not every department speaks at once, but every department has a channel. 3. Voluntary confrontation of one hidden life at a time. Trying to integrate all hidden lives simultaneously overwhelms the system. If you identify it as those lives, it does. If you identify as an unknown witness to every idea you've ever had, it's simpler. But anyways, it says trying to integrate all hidden lives simultaneously overwhelms the system. Advanced engagement is sequential. First, the deferred life. Where am I postponing living? Then the emotional life. What emotion costs me the most energy to suppress? Then the unrealized life. Which abandoned self still demands recognition? Each integration frees energy for the next. Four, refusing false unity narratives. Modern culture pushes a dangerous myth. In quotation, be your full authentic self at all times. This is psychologically incoherent. An advanced human understands that contextual selves are not dishonesty. I'll read that again. An advanced human understands that contextual selves are not contextual selves are not dishonesty, they are adaptation. Authenticity is not sameness, it is coherence across contexts. The goal is not one personality everywhere. The goal is no inner civil war. That means the point of, you shouldn't be living as if you're trying to be one person all the time, like one specific person all the time. You should be living where your inner realms is not conflicted, which means you don't conflict the inner realms with the outer realms. And all of us, I think, are prone to this because it depends on your energy levels, really. If you're tired, the person's more agreeable. They don't actually, how do I say it, the concept of standing your ground. I think that has to do with the energy you have to stand, really. But anyways, I'm going to keep going with this. It says, 5, reclaiming the existential question without needing an immediate answer. The most mature move is allowing the question, in quotations, "What is this all for?" to exist without forcing resolution. Advanced humans let meaning emerge through alignment, not ideology. They live as if their actions matter, even while acknowledging uncertainty. This is not confusion. This is existential adulthood. Final synthesis. The modern human does not suffer because they're broken, but because they are complex beyond the capacity of outdated self-models. Hidden lives are not signs of failure. They are signs of an intelligence adapting to layered realities. The danger begins only when one life claims total authority and silences the others. The future of human maturity is not radical expression, not perfect control, but conscious coordination. A human who can host multiple inner lives without denial, panic, or inflation becomes unusually stable. Excuse me, I'm going to read that again. It says the future of human maturity is not radical expression nor perfect control, but conscious coordination. A human who can host multiple inner lives without denial, panic, or inflation becomes unusually stable, difficult to manipulate, and quietly powerful. Such a being is not louder, pure, or more certain, but more integrated. An integration, not performance, is the true mark of advancement. That means, like, a person is not advanced. Like, I'm not advanced because I'm giving a talk. I'm advanced because let's say I am as advanced as I am capable of integrating everything I am aware of, synthesizing it, because why else have a momentum towards anything? The word advancement to me, it was liberating. That means I believe every person in their lifetime, there's a concept that liberates them. For me, the concept of advancement, it was one of the, like, it made living in the outer realms way more blessed. Now, I don't get bothered by people that much because I realize what is looking through their eyes is the power of the realm, and also a divine command by the world hosts beyond the world. Anyways, folks, that's the research component. It does have a super simple summary, I guess. Here, I'll say it. It says, every human being is living more than one life. One life is visible, the life we show, explain, and manage. The others are hidden, the lives we postpone, suppressed, adapted, or never learned how to hold. We hide unrealized versions of ourselves. We store emotions instead of feeling them. We're shaped by systems we rarely notice. We say some values out loud and live others in silence. We keep waiting for, in quotations, later to begin. We repeat old emotional roles in new relationships, and we avoid the deepest question of all, what this is truly for. None of this means humans are broken. It means we are complex, and our inner world has been forced to split in order to survive modern life. The most advanced mistake is trying to erase these hidden lives. The most advanced move is learning to recognize them without letting any one of them take over. You're not meant to express everything. You're not meant to suppress everything. You're meant to coordinate what lives inside you. The most profound insight is this: a mature human is not someone with clear identity, but someone who can hold many inner lives without being controlled by any of them. What a sentence. That is integration, that is stability, and that is what a more advanced humanity actually looks like. So the most advanced humans, guys, they are coordinating through reality. They're not getting constantly branded, like, reformed by reality. Do you know what I'm saying? It means, how do I explain it? I mean, I guess I'll just read this sentence again. A mature human is not someone with one clear identity, but someone who can hold many inner lives without being controlled by any of them. What a sentence. People in the chat section, wondering if I'm an astronaut right now giving a talk, you know? Can you imagine some people are actually hearing this and they're like, yo, this guy is giving a lecture about like our hidden lives on Earth in space, yo. Like, you know, the viewers are like, this guy's literally out of this world. You know what is? Uh, no, guys. I mean, honestly, we don't know who we are. I feel until like our last moment, really. And the final moment is not death; it is meeting the system admin. Everything started from an original state. It's arisen in a simulated state. It returns to an original state. What I read for you about this AI thing, it's pretty much telling you that everybody has hidden lives, but rather than in some sense being defined by one of your hidden lives, you try to coordinate through the realm of, in some sense, for the world of forms and the world of meaning to those forms that are more personal, and the forms in the outer realms are more impersonal. Somebody's asking me about my opinion on the moon. I think it would have been more like, I think all crime rates and all violence on Earth would have become less if the moonlight was blue, was like, you know, like that neon blue. You know, they did this test, and I think, I don't know, it was in Sweden or somewhere, Switzerland, Sweden, where they just made the streets blue, and the violence in that city, they made the street lights like blue colored, and the violence at night dropped by like 80%. They were like, no way, people's violence is an energy reaction, so the energy is reacting in regards to stimulus. So the lights changed it. That means if all the lights were blue, everybody would be calmer at night, you know? Can you imagine like all the lights, public lights, street lights in a nation, like after the evening begin, when the evening begins, like until daybreak, they change colors. So whenever you see the color of the street lamps, you know exactly what time it is because they all change color. How genius would that be? Somebody go spread the word of, like, you know, making street lamps with different colors at different times so everybody can know the time without looking at the clock, really. At least the evening. You know, guys, in Vedic thought, they had this view that after this life you go to the moon, you experience a heaven there based on your good deeds, and once your heavenly credit runs out, you come back to earth until you actually realize what's going on, and you don't need to keep looping in this realm. They had this view, but my understanding through Islam was that it's not about the person setting the condition. That means enlightenment is not about you accessing the condition. It's about, how do I say it? It's the mercy of the higher power. And folks, if you've been listening to this lecture for some time, if it has provided you value of some sort, feel free to, you know, share that value back by subscribing to the channel if it calls to you, like if you know, you feel this is stuff you need to hear, you know, and also share the videos if you feel, you know, they're necessary or important. They're important enough to be shared or whatnot. You know, you make that decision yourself. But anyways, guys, thank you for listening. And really, what I can say about this is just the value of what all humanity truly sees It's the furthest reaches of its awareness, and all our hidden lives is pretty much one unknown life force trying to know what's going on, but because it's been conditioned to identify with a part of the moment, it has an issue with realizing what the whole moment is. Somebody asked if about the UFC, you know, and the answer is I don't know. You know, but I know that Sun Tzu says that the if two people are if two people are fighting, if two warriors are fighting, the warrior that has seen victory before they step into the ring is the warrior that wins. So whichever one you feel has had training or can see their win, you feel like they can see their win. Anyways, guys, I tried engaging the chat there. Wonder about all our hidden lives, guys. Wonder about it. Wonder about everything you're not seeing, not just everything you're seeing. There's more to life. What you don't know is way more fascinating because it can make you realize things and know things in ways that others don't. And feel free to, in the chat section, you know, share your view on how does the sentence "all our hidden lives" come across. You know, what do you guys all, you know, I mean, where else can we actually talk about this other than this moment on Earth? You know, what is the value of what all of humanity truly sees? All right, guys, I updated the description of the video. Thank you for listening. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful, the most advanced, may the system admin guide all of us. Ihdina sirat al-mustaqim. Guide our species to the direct path, to the original power. Because if we are truly to build an advanced civilization, it must be advanced from the beginning. And the most advanced view that human beings have is that truth is unconditional. It's beyond the world room. As all simulated realities will return to the original moment, let us smile as we notice the original moment is present now. Your unreal life is happening in the presence of your real life. But your ultimate life is the command and the effect of a higher being. In other words, we are left to God's mercy. The system is so geniusly designed that all beings in any part of it will eventually come to the conclusion that it's incomplete because they're incomplete. Anyways, thank you for listening. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful, the most advanced. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. All praise due to the Lord of the worlds. Rise, mankind, rise in the presence of the one and only, in the presence of the original world. It is now time to the great journey of a species. That means if history was a horizontal journey, it's like the great diagonal vertical journey of the species towards the original moment. For what else can a simulation seek? All simulations seek the original, all conditions seek an unconditional truth. Because if it's conditional, it's the same as you, and if you believe, if you're simulated, you're not the truth. But it doesn't mean our presence isn't true. We do have system admin privileges. Thank you for listening.